आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव। Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News, Birth of a Nation.
India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day. In our 200th episode today, we remember freedom fighter Ripudaman Singh, who was born on the 4th of March 1883. Son of Maharaja Hira Singh of Nabha, he was nominated as a member Imperial Legislative Council during 1906 to 1908. He was generally critical of the British and voted against the Seditious Meetings Bill. After the death of his father in December 1911, Ripudaman Singh returned to Nabha and ascended the throne in January 1912. As a king, Ripudaman Singh adopted an independent stance in his dealings with political officers and lieutenant governors. He appointed the Congressite Purushottam Das Tandon as chief minister and engaged a pro-Congress barrister, Sir Eardley Norton. He insisted on the treaty rights and autonomy of princes in the princes' conferences.
He overlooked the presence of Gadarites in his territories and donated money towards the founding of Banaras Hindu University. He presided over a session of the Tilak School of Politics and contributed to the Tilak Swaraj Fund. He gave financial support to pro-Congress papers like the Bombay Chronicle and the Indian Daily Herald, and interacted with the national leaders like Gokhale, Malviya, Lajpat Rai and Motilal Nehru.
During the Akali movement in Punjab, Ripudaman Singh observed the Martyrs' Day to honour all those who laid down their lives at Nankana Sahib.
After a manipulated political inquiry, Ripudaman Singh was forced into dissociating himself from the Nabha administration and sent subsequently to Dehradun.
The issue of his restoration was taken up by the Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee and the Shiromani Akali Dal, which developed into a prolonged agitation during 1923 to 1925 called the Jaito Morcha. The Indian National Congress also passed resolutions in support of Ripudaman Singh.
After the enactment of Gurudwara legislation and withdrawal of Akali agitation in 1925, Ripudaman Singh was deposed formally in 1928 and sent to Kodaikanal in Madras Presidency as a political prisoner. Several national leaders tried to secure his release, but the government remained adamant on the plea of his disloyalty. Ripudaman Singh was all alone in Kodaikanal when he died in December 1942 after a long and persistent fight for freedom. We salute the great Indian.
Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram.
We also remember freedom fighter Bulusu Sambamurthy, who was born on the 4th of March 1886 in Godavari district of the erstwhile Madras Presidency. He was inspired by a speech by Konda Venkatappaya Pantulu and gave up his law profession to join the non-cooperation movement in 1920.
Sambamurthy was a true Gandhian and adopted Gandhian principles in everyday life. In 1923, he became a member of the organizing committee of the Kakinada session of the Indian National Congress. He was one of the first leaders to demand Purna Swaraj.
In April 1930, he participated in a salt satyagraha at Chollangi near Kakinada and was arrested. He stood in the 1937 Madras Assembly elections and was elected the President of the Madras Legislative Council. He served from 1937 to 1942 when he resigned due to the outbreak of the Quit India movement.
Samba Murthy was also connected with the Andhrodyamam, Andhra movement. When Potti Sri Ramulu decided to fast unto death at Madras in 1952 on the issue of formation of Andhra province, Samba Murthy placed his residence at his disposal. We salute the great patriot.
We also remember Indian National Army member Deep Singh. Born in Haryana, Deep Singh joined the INA voluntarily as a sepoy and served in the 3rd Guerrilla Regiment. He was killed while taking part in the fighting against the British in Burma on the 4th of March 1944. We salute the great martyr.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.